The Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has stepped up his criticism of recent Israeli blockades of aid reaching Gaza and the limited amount of support getting through in the last few days. But he's under pressure to take more action to help relieve the suffering of civilians. Radio National Breakfast's political correspondent Melissa Clark joins us now. Hi there, Mel. Morning to you. So we heard yesterday the Prime Minister strengthening his language about what was happening in Gaza, but there are those who would like to see him go further.
That's right. It was a notable change from the Prime Minister yesterday, talking about Israel's actions being outrageous and not accepting what he described as Israel's excuses and explanations, and calling for the ability for aid and food and medical supplies to be able to get straight to people who are in need in Gaza. But what we've seen today is more comments from a former Labor cabinet minister, now backbencher Ed Husic, who's made it clear over the last couple of days that he will continue to push for the leader of the government that he's a part of to do more to support civilians who are suffering in this humanitarian crisis. So he has told Radio National Breakfast this morning that he thinks the Prime Minister should be calling in the Israeli ambassador for a formal discussion to put across the point of view that he expressed yesterday. He's also said that there needs to be more support in terms of direct aid that Australia could provide in not only financial support but medical support in particular. And interestingly, Ed Husic has also said that as other countries are talking about and preparing for the possibility of imposing sanctions on some within the Israeli government, Australia should be getting ready to do the same.
The biggest thing that I would urge is, one, I think what the Prime Minister did yesterday was critically important. I think it was vital that he speak up with the strength that he did to call out the fact that the withholding of aid is completely unacceptable. Two, I think the second thing that needs to actively occur is that we do consider those targeted sanctions so that we can work with our friends in the international community should the Netanyahu government fail to acknowledge broader global sentiment about this.
Mel, there was a joint statement last week from the British, French and Canadian governments. Why was Australia not part of that statement?
Look, when the Prime Minister was asked about this, about why Australia had, signed on to a statement that came with 23 other countries that were aid donors, but didn't sign on to this much stronger statement that came from the Brits, the French and the Canadians that talked about the threat to impose sanctions if aid wasn't able to start coming through and if actions in the West Bank weren't scaled back by Israel. The Prime Minister said, oh, look, that was a G7 statement. Now, it raises some questions because obviously the G7 is bigger than the three countries of the UK, Canada and France, and their names weren't on that statement. The statement made no reference to it being a G7 discussion. Now, it could have originated, the lead up to the issuing of that statement could have originated in the G7, we don't know. But Ed Husic wanted to point out that there was still the possibility that Australia could join that statement or point to it and say that Australia agrees with it. And has said that there's nothing in that statement that Australia shouldn't be able to stand by as the international community keeps reassessing what it can do to try and reduce suffering in Gaza as the conflict goes on.